Your wife's pregnant. I can't believe you're with an older woman. A 38-year-old woman is way past her prime. Who can tolerate their beloved wife being ridiculed by their boss like this? My wife is 38, and we're finally going to have the baby we've been waiting for a long time. As her husband, it's my duty to protect her, especially when she's facing a high-risk pregnancy. My name is Keith, and I currently work at a mid-sized advertising agency. I was raised in a low-income single-parent household. As I had to get a job to financially support my mother, I didn't get to go to high school. The company I work for only hires college graduates nowadays, but 20 years ago, it was different. It was just a small local advertising firm. That was why they hired someone like me without a high school diploma. However, the job they gave me was menial, and it was only a temporary position. The reason we were a single-parent family was that my father had passed away before I was born. He died due to an illness. My mother, a cleaner, used to clean at a hospital once a week, where she met my father, who was a patient there. Despite people advising her against marrying a man with a short life expectancy, she married him and they started their life together. My father was overjoyed when he learned my mother was pregnant. I have a feeling it'll be a boy. Let's name him Keith. My father, who had chosen the name for his unborn son, passed away 6 months later. I have only ever seen his face in photographs. But whenever I think of the story behind my name Keith, I feel my father's smiling presence. Live your life in a way that would make your father proud. My mother always said to me as a child, a mantra I still hold dear. She continued her cleaning job while raising me. However, after my birth, her health declined, and she couldn't work as hard. As my mother was often missing work, her monthly income was limited. In fact, it was just barely enough for the two of us to survive. That was why, since elementary school, I planned to start working as soon as I finished junior high school. I enjoyed drawing and was good at writing, so my homeroom teacher suggested that I work for the local advertising agency when we discussed my future. With only low levels of education, I was limited to roles like answering phones, delivering documents to clients, and running errands for the others. Since it was a temporary position, the pay was low, and there was no guarantee of continuing employment, so I devoted myself to every task. After working diligently for 3 years, I was offered a full-time position. Drawing and writing helped me to become focused on observing the work of the senior employees while I was doing menial tasks. By the time I became a full-time employee, I had a solid understanding of the routine at work, so I would go beyond my assigned tasks and duties and start proposing ideas and improvements. My boss recognized my efforts, allowing me to participate in important meetings and projects. The company, originally just a local one, gradually expanded its clientele and became recognized as a mid-sized advertising agency. Just between you and me, your contribution to our company is significant, Keith. Keep up the good work. My former boss Alex once whispered to me at an end-of-project party. Alex, a merit-based boss, always supported me regardless of my educational background. He has already retired, but I'll forever be grateful to him. I met my wife, Emily, when I was 20. After work, I would often stop by the supermarket near the office to do my grocery shopping. Emily, a cashier there, chased after me one day as I was leaving, having finished my shopping. "I'm sorry, I forgot that the stuff you bought was on special." She returned the overcharged amount, a mere 30 cents, which she had run after me to give back. How honest she was. That was my initial impression. Since then, we started chatting casually and eventually began dating. I found that my first impression of her was actually correct. Thinking I'd regret it for the rest of my life if I let her go, I confessed my feelings to her. Emily was 35 years old, 15 years older than me, and divorced. She married someone who came from a wealthy local family after he fell in love with her, but was unilaterally divorced because she was unable to conceive. So, I might not be able to have children. Is that okay with you? Emily asked with a look of guilt, and I told her. Of course, we get married. And to our delight, 3 years into our marriage, we discovered she was pregnant. Emily and I, who had given up hope of having children, were overjoyed and embraced each other. I think the reason Emily couldn't get pregnant in her first marriage was probably due to her ex-husband. Since you're 38, it's considered a high-risk pregnancy. Your husband's support is crucial, so please ensure he's there for you, the obstetrician advised. Hearing this, I asked Emily to reduce her work hours at the supermarket. I was also actively trying to help her with the heavy lifting and daily household chores. I truly understood the feelings my late father must have had when he named his unborn child. I wished he could have lived a little longer to see the child that was about to be born. Emily's belly gradually grew, as did my happiness. However, not everything was smooth sailing. The new boss, Charles, was hard on me for some reason. Hey Keith, there's trash in the hallway. Clean that up now. What do you mean? Confused, I asked for clarification, only to be met with a scornful laugh from Charles. You were just a temp doing menial tasks, right? Don't forget that and clean up. Not only me but also my colleagues were shocked to hear that. However, we all knew the kind of backlash we'd face if we defied Charles. So, my colleagues turned a blind eye. Despite being busy with work, I cleaned the hallway. A month after Charles joined, we had a team-building event at a pub. After having some beer, Charles began bragging. My wife's in her late 30s, and she's lost all her charm. At my favorite bar, I just slip a $100 note to a young woman, and off to a motel. Wow, you're having an affair with someone in her 20s. I wish I could attract a young woman like you do, Charles. When the colleagues flattered him, Charles got even more carried away and said to me, Speaking of which, Keith, your wife is 15 years older than you, isn't she? Must be boring to be with an old lady in her late 30s. I can introduce you to a young girl if you want. What a jerk. That was what I thought to myself, but I just laughed it off. Charles, with his graduate degree, looked down on me, a middle school graduate, as if I was nothing. My previous boss, who had already retired, recognized my contributions, but Charles was different. Moreover, he believed younger women were more desirable. It was bad enough to demean his own wife, but I couldn't stand him insulting my beloved wife. One morning, during an important meeting, Emily called me. I'm feeling a bit unwell. It's hard to go to the hospital alone. Can you come with me? That's not good. I'll be right there, I replied. I explained the situation to Charles and asked if I could leave work early. Can't your wife go to the hospital by herself? Well, she's pregnant, so I'd rather accompany her. When I mentioned Emily was pregnant, his eyes widened and then he burst out laughing. Are you trying to say a 38-year-old woman getting pregnant? If you want to ditch work, at least come up with a better lie. It's true, she's really pregnant, I insisted. Charles gaped at me, then sneered. Your wife's pregnant. I can't believe you're actually with an older woman. A 38-year-old woman is way past her prime. That was when I lost it. Are you for real? How can you be so rude? This child means everything to my wife. She needs my support, especially now. Ignoring Charles's attempts to stop me, I rushed out of the office and headed home. I immediately called a taxi and took her to the hospital. Fortunately, her condition soon stabilized, and the baby was unharmed. The next day, as soon as I arrived at work, Charles started ordering me around. Keith, go visit our key customers now. Don't come back until you've secured 10 new contracts. Wait, please. There's an important project meeting today. You, a middle school graduate, don't need to be in meetings. You're just a menial worker. It was clear Charles was holding a grudge for my defiance yesterday. Although I was supposed to lead the meeting, I had no choice but to entrust it to a colleague and go on customer visits. Luckily, our clients trusted me, and as soon as I explained the situation, they readily signed new contracts. I managed to secure 10 contracts before noon and returned to the office in time to attend a project meeting. But Charles wasn't the kind to back down easily. Even as I was explaining the project's plan, he interrupted, saying, "I'm thirsty. Hey, errand boy, I want some orange juice." After I went out to get orange juice for him and returned, he demanded, "Didn't I say I wanted coffee? Go and exchange it." His unreasonable requests and demands ruined the meeting for the day. Since I couldn't conduct the project meeting properly, I got reprimanded by the head office and went through a tough time. I was disheartened by the thought of facing this situation again tomorrow. I couldn't bring myself to share any of this with Emily, who was preparing for a high-risk pregnancy. And I didn't want to worry her, which could potentially affect her health. But as Charles's unreasonable bullying continued, Emily noticed something was wrong. "You're not looking well. What's wrong? You don't have to do the housework if you're tired." Saying this, Emily, with her big belly, started doing the dishes. Realizing this wasn't right, I decided to tell her about the terrible treatment I was receiving from Charles. "Is there something wrong with a 38-year-old woman being pregnant? Was your boss joking around? What's wrong with giving birth at an advanced age?" Insulted, Emily was extremely angry. It seemed she felt the need to teach Charles a lesson, not just for herself but for all the women around the world preparing for childbirth at advanced maternal age. "What's the name of your boss?" she asked. "I think his full name is Charles Anderson," I replied. "Oh." Upon hearing Charles's name, Emily crossed her arms and nodded thoughtfully. Then, she came up with a plan and shared it with me. I was skeptical at first, but I knew following her plan was the only way to calm her anger. The following Sunday, there was a neighborhood cleanup event. According to the neighborhood association rules, all residents must participate in cleaning up. We were supposed to gather trash from public spaces around our homes and then take it to the park. Concerned about the baby in her belly, I helped Emily pick up the garbage and took it to the park. There, we unexpectedly ran into Charles and his wife. As it turned out, Charles and I lived in the same neighborhood. Emily, who actively participated in neighborhood meetings, knew Charles's wife. "I'm Emily. Nice to meet you." Emily greeted Charles, her tone overly sweet. Charles, upon seeing Emily's big belly, looked very uncomfortable. "Charles always says terrible things like women over 30 aren't really women anymore," Charles's wife said. "Oh, no, that was just a joke." Charles, seemingly intimidated by his wife, frantically tried to dismiss his usual remarks in a panic. This happened while all the participants were having coffee after the neighborhood cleanup event. Suddenly, Emily started speaking in a loud voice, making sure everyone could hear her. "There's something I want to tell you. My husband asked his boss if he could leave work early to take me to the hospital. Guess what his boss said?" As Emily spoke, Charles's wife glared at him. "He said, 'I can't believe a 38-year-old woman still can get pregnant. They are just old hags, not women.'" This revelation sparked outrage among the women of the neighborhood. It appeared that Emily had already confided everything to Charles's wife, who then started speaking out loud. "Charles often says that women in their 30s shouldn't even be called women." "Oh, no, that's not what I meant." As Charles tried to hastily make excuses, his wife presented a screenshot of Charles's text messages with other women that she had secretly kept on her phone. "I know everything, Charles. You've been looking down on me just because I'm in my 30s and cheating with younger women," she accused. "I'm sorry," Charles muttered. "I thought I could put up with it, but I can't stand the fact that you belittled women who were giving birth at an older age." With a fierce look, Emily grabbed Charles's arm and dragged him out of the park. While everyone from the neighborhood association stood there in shock, my wife Emily winked at me. It felt like the thorn had been removed from my heart, and I instinctively hugged Emily. Since then, Charles hasn't shown up at the office. Apparently, his wife filed for divorce, claiming a significant amount of money for a property settlement. His repeated mistreatment of his subordinates had all come to light, resulting in his instant dismissal. Furthermore, President Johnson, recognizing my past achievements, promoted me to the head of the department. The first thing I did was create a more comfortable workplace in our department. No more looking down on women because of their age. Encouraging male employees to take paternity leave. Because of these reforms, the relationships among the staff improved, and our work performance significantly increased. Emily safely delivered a baby boy, fulfilling her dream of becoming a mother. Now, as the head of the department, I lead by example by taking paternity leave and devoting myself to child rearing. We named our son after my late father. Dad, your grandson is born. Reporting to my Father in heaven, Emily and I vowed to protect our child at all costs. Watching our son grow every day, Emily and I feel truly blessed.